Welcome. My name is Lisa Germany, and I am the Content and Trails Manager here at Arctic Circle Business. It gets a bit confusing because I work for a destination Arctic Circle, which is actually part of Arctic Circle Business, which is then part of Kirkconnell Municipality, which is the municipality in which the Arctic Circle Trail sits. So today, I'm just going to do a bit of an overview of the trail, in particular pointing out just a few things that perhaps are not necessarily well known about it. And then I have some updates about the work that we've done since last summer and last year's webinar. And then should be plenty of time for questions and stuff towards the end. So just to get started, you can see a map here. Very vague map of the Arctic Circle Trail. And we have a really, really important thing, and I'll come back to this several times. Our biggest issue on the trail is rubbish. And so please, pack it in, pack it out. So at a glance, the Arctic Circle Trail is somewhere between 160 kilometers to 200 kilometers long, depending on exactly how you count it. It runs from Sisimiut at the coast to Kangerlussuaq inland, and then there is a 25-kilometer extension now to reach the ice cap at Russell Glacier. So for those of you wanting to walk from the ice cap to the ocean, then you can do that. Just the ice cap is Russell Glacier. There are two routes. So the northern route is the one that was established in 1979, so it's almost 50 years old. And then there is a southern route, which we have been actively working on for the last few years due to the ATV track being built across the first half of the trail from Sisimiut, and I'll come back to this a bit later. Now, last year was the first year that we attempted to actually find out how many people are on the ACT during summer. And we had a system whereby we put some forms in the canoe center, and we asked people as they're passing the canoe center to just pop in and fill out the form and leave it in the bag that we had there last year. We are continuing this system again this year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. What we came up with is from that system, we had about 760 forms filled out. And then by talking to people in both Kangerlussuaq and Sisimiut, we estimate that there are actually about 1,200 hikers per season on the trail at the moment. Now, that's not a lot. I mean, this picture is pretty indicative of what you'll see on the trail most of the time, because those 1,200 people are spread out over 2 months. And they are also spread out over 200 kilometers. So you are really alone out there. And really the only place that you're going to run into a lot of people, by lot I mean maybe 20, is around the huts. And that's only if you're choosing to stay at the huts in the evening. You'll find other people there. But interestingly, in the feedback that we received, a lot of people said that they both really enjoyed the solitude of the trail itself during the day, but then also connecting with other hikers at the huts during the evening. So so it's not a bad thing, and the trail is definitely not crowded at this point in time. The other thing is that the trail is extremely remote, and it's a wilderness trail. So there's no luxury on this trail. You must be completely self-sufficient, and you must know what you're doing. This shouldn't be your first multi-day hike, and so you must be well prepared. Now, just a little bit about the management of the Arctic Circle Trail. Basically, the Arctic Circle Trail has one part-time trails manager, and that's me. So I spend half of my time looking after hiking trails, not just the Arctic Circle Trail, but the other hiking trails we also have in the region. And then I spend the other half of my time working on content for the websites and social media and that kind of thing. That's it. There's no team. It's literally just me. And then I have some assistance for parts of the season, but it really depends on who's available and what I'm doing. The other thing to remember also is that the season is very short. So I literally have about 2.5 months to do all the work actually on the trail itself. The other thing it's important to know about is that there is no set budget for trail maintenance. So the actual maintenance of the tread of the trail itself, there is no budget for that. So we are doing bits and pieces as best we can, as we kind of get little bits of money from different places. There is no continuous source of money for actual trail maintenance. And remember that this trail has been there for almost 50 years. So if you're out there and you see some issues on the trail, you'll start to understand why that is probably the case. There is a small budget for essential hut maintenance and the cleaning, so the collecting of the trash at the moment, and also the toileting bags along the hut, along the trail. And so that is, when I say a small budget, I mean a small budget. So that, again, there is only a certain amount we can do with the budget that we have. There is no access except by foot during summer. So all of that trash that people leave along the trail is going to stay there because we have no way of getting there during summer except by hiking it ourselves. And again, you know, it's just me and I have a lot of other things I'm doing as well, which means that we can only clean during the winter. And this is an image of from the municipality dump in Sisimiut here last week. So these bags that you see on the back of the truck are from the latest run across the Arctic Circle Trail in winter. You can see the snow, to collect the trash out of the blue bins and also the toilet bags. I'll come back to the bins in a second, but you can sort of see that this is it's a lot of trash from a trail. And this image is from the hut, the big hut in the first fjord, just near Sisimiut here. And that is the trash from one hut, inside one hut. That's not even the stuff in the blue bin. So we really, really, really cannot stress enough that it really is essential that all you guys who are hiking the trail, you have to bring your trash out with you. We have such limited capacity to get out to these places, and we cannot be, we just can't manage this amount of trash. And then as far as donations go, so we do have a donations page on the website. But last year, if we just take as an example, and that's only the second year I think we've accepted donations, we received 6,690 Danish kroner, or the equivalent of about 1,000 euros, $1,000. And to give you some context for those who have not looked at prices in Greenland yet, that gets you, about 4 nights, maybe 5 nights of accommodation in a hotel here. Certainly not enough to do anything major along the trail. We really appreciate those who did donate last year. Honestly, it has come in handy to get some little bits and pieces this year, particularly around cleaning. But obviously, we can't manage a trail on that amount of funding. So who's the trail for? So we've said all over the place on our website and in the Facebook group and pretty much everywhere that the trail is not for everybody. It's an extremely remote backcountry trail. It is, quite rugged, and there is no cell phone connection once you leave Kangerlussuaq until you get to Sisimiut. It is marked, but there are patches of it where it's not very well marked. And if you're going to attempt the southern route, then it's not marked very well at all at the moment, although that is one of the things that we hope to fix this summer. So you have to know how to navigate. If you don't know how to navigate, then please get some experience on a different hiking trail that's not quite so remote, and then come and join us next year or the year after. You have to know basic first aid. You need to be able to take care of non-emergency situations yourself in the field. I'll come back to search and rescue a little bit later, but we do not have the capacity here in Greenland to, willy-nilly send out search and rescue teams. It's a very expensive operation here, and we have a limited number of people that are involved in those operations. And I mean, for your own enjoyment and for your own safety, have experience carrying a heavy backpack for several days. You need to carry everything with you, which includes, a good tent, all your sleeping system, and you need food for the number of days you plan to hike the trail, +2. just in case you're delayed somewhere or you need to stop for a day unexpectedly. So this is, for your own enjoyment. If you are not trained, if you haven't trained with a heavy pack for that long, then, you're going to be pretty miserable, at least for the first half of the trail. And we would prefer you to enjoy the experience and not just be struggling through it. But it also stops, little injuries. If you're carrying a heavy pack and you haven't trained for it, then there is the potential to, twist an ankle or, another, small injury, but it is an injury that will hamper your experience. So if you don't have this experience, we really encourage you to try a long distance hike by yourself, carrying everything you need on a less remote trail, and then come and visit us. We'd love to see you here, but we're just trying to keep you safe and, be able to actually manage the trail appropriately. What we expect from hikers. So I said I would keep coming back to this, and I will. Whatever you bring in, whether it's toilet paper or your food, any wrappings at all, whatever you bring onto the trail, you have to pack it out. You have to. We just don't have the capacity to manage the garbage along the trail. And this is the biggest issue every single year. So we encourage everybody to follow the leave no trace principles, and we have those on our website. And basically the thing to remember, if you've brought it in, you take it out with you. And this is just an example of what I'm talking about. So at the moment, there are these blue bins at the huts, and we are actually going to remove them in 2024. So because this bin is the one, I think this was a Catafik, and this was around the middle of August. And as you can see, it was already completely full. The bin should only be used for trash you pick up along the trail that is not yours. So, perhaps something has fallen out of somebody's pocket or off somebody's pack. By all means, use the bins for that. But if it's your own trash, please carry it out. Please do not put it in the bins. They will be removed next year. Because this is the outcome that we've had for the last couple of years. A couple of huts also have these old burning barrels. So number one, we don't actually want you to burn anything, because then there is the potential for a wildfire. And in the Arctic tundra, wildfires are extremely difficult to put out. There was one that burnt quite a long time back in 2019 along the trail, and we actually had to evacuate people because of that fire. So, we don't want you to use these bins at all. You can see the smaller image here that people just throw things in there and throw rocks on it. The problem is that A, it's a limited capacity, and B, it's windy often. And so the wind just picks the trash up out of here and strews it all over the ground. So please do not use the barrels if they are there. They will also be removed next year, at the end of this year, start of next year. And do not use the blue bins. And whatever you do, just don't leave a bag of stuff in the hut. This is your responsibility. Please carry it out with you. You've done the hard part by eating the food. This is the easy bit. This is the light bit. Another thing that we really strongly request is that you don't leave food or gas canisters in the huts themselves. So if your food, like it's got a Ziploc bag full of food in it, it doesn't matter whether you label it, nobody is going to eat an open packet of food. So please do not leave it. Please take it out with you. You can dispose of it once you get to Kangerlussuaq or Sosimiut, but do not leave it in the huts. These unopened packets of foods, again, take them to Sosimiut and Kangerlussuaq and leave them at your accommodation. They will happily accept them and pass them on to other hikers who may need them, or to the locals. So, but in the huts, they're not doing anybody really any good there. You are not going to come to a hut and not have enough food, we hope. And then with the gas canisters, what we find is that every year there are just mountains and mountains of empty gas canisters, which again, please, you've done the hard bit, take the empty gas canister out to Sosimiut or Kangerlussuaq. And, but then also, gas canisters with a little bit of gas in them. Again, we ask you, do not leave them in the huts. Please take them out with you. Leave them at your accommodation. I know on both ends of the trail, most accommodations actually accept half-used gas canisters or quarter-used gas canisters. and they will then pass them on to locals who need them when they're out in the backcountry or onto other hikers. But don't leave them in the huts, please. This is the collection from one hut, just to give you a scale of what I'm talking about. The other thing is toilet paper. This is the tallest cairn along the Arctic Circle Trail near the Canoe Centre. And I hiked here last year in May, just before the main season started. And there was so much toilet paper just around this one cairn. You can bury your human waste, dig a cat hole, again, using leave no trace principles, dig a cat hole more than 100 meters from the trail or any water source or the hut, and then bury it. But the toilet paper, the used toilet paper, please carry that out. This stuff lasts forever in the Arctic, so please carry it out. And this is, you can see the bag here of toilet paper that I've collected just from around this one cairn. And ladies, I highly recommend pea cloths. It cuts down on the amount of toilet paper you use enormously. And there are various resources on the web that kind of give you tips and tricks on how to use them and stuff like that. But if if you need something around that particular issue, then have a look at these. It's a lot better than toilet paper. And the last thing is basically follow the marked trail. I mean, last year was very, very wet. The year before was fairly wet. We're a bit worried that this might be a new trend, but we just have to see what happens this year. So this is an extreme example of the wet trail. And of course, obviously, we don't expect you to walk through the middle of something that's going to go over the top of your boots. But if it is at all possible, hike in, even if it's got a bit of water in it, even if it's muddy, please hike in the trail itself. You can see here, this is the main trail. There is sort of a secondary trail here. There's another secondary trail here, and there's another secondary trail here. Every time we end up with this, it's more vegetation that's lost, and the Arctic vegetation is very, very slow growing. So that means it's gone for a significant period of time. And, obviously we want to keep the backcountry, as close to natural as possible. So if at all possible, even if it's a bit wet, even if it's a bit muddy, please hike in the trail. Now, I'm hoping that most of you have found the website, the official website by now. This is arcticcircletrail.gl. This has the latest information on it. It's the most up-to-date resource you will find on the web, or anywhere, in fact. And what I will say is a lot of people like to use the Cicerone Guide to the Arctic Circle Trail with Patty Dillon, and it's a great resource. But please bear in mind that the latest update was 2019, so 5 years ago. So by all means, it's a great resource. But for the latest information about the trail, please come here to the official website. You'll notice these last three. These are ways that you can contribute and help us on the trail. I've spoken a bit about donations before, and I will be sending out a lot more information to the Facebook group, at least around donations in June. We also ask you to submit feedback after your hike, and I'll come back to that in a second. And on there, you can also find stories and podcasts from others who have done it, both in summer and in winter. So it's an interesting way to see what other people's experiences were on that. As I mentioned, feedback is extremely important to us, and it is how we identify the priorities for the coming year. It's all de-identified, and it is shared with the municipality and other key stakeholders involved in the trail. So I wrote the report from last year, ended up being 33 pages long, I think it was. And for those of you in the Facebook group, you would have seen that there is an infographic which summarizes the key results from that. It also has a series of recommendations at the end of it, which I will come back to in a second. You've all probably heard about the ATV track and the Arctic Circle Road. So the ATV track is almost finished. They are completing the last part between the ski centre here just outside of Sisimiut and the first fjord this summer. So once that is complete, the ATV track will be complete all the way to Kagashuswak. The road construction, we still don't have a date for the start of the road construction, but the idea is that sometime in the next few years that will begin and will largely follow the ATV track. And just like last year, there are signs at the Kangerlussuaq end where it gets a little bit confusing to make sure you get pointed onto the Arctic Circle Trail and you don't follow the ATV trail. Counting number of ACT users. So we tried this last year and we're going to do the same thing this year. Last year was the first time we actually had an accurate count of the minimum number of hikers. So we had responses from 762 people. So we know that there is more than 762 people on the trail last summer. And our estimate is around 1,200. So we're doing this again this year. And what we ask is it's paper-based. So at the canoe center, which if you're coming from Kangerlussuaq is the second official hut, there's also the largest hut. Inside, you will find a box of forms that look like this, and you will find a post box. And all we ask is, as you're hiking the trail, even if you're not going to stay at the canoe center, even if you're just going to hike past that and camp somewhere else, that's fine. But could we please ask you to just go in for 5 minutes, fill out one of these forms each, and pop it in the mailbox. Because the more we can show that the number of people on the Arctic Circle Trail is significant, then the more likely we can get funding to help us with the trail maintenance. And essentially what, if we can get that funding, what it is used for is to help us apply for funding. It helps us improve the user experience, and I'll come back to that with the feedback in a second. And also, in doing those, to protect the environment as well. So when you're going past the canoe center, or if you're staying there, please just pop in and fill in one of these. And each person in your group should fill one out. All right, so the recommendations from last year's report were the following. And I'm just going to go through and give you an update of what we've done from each of these. So the first one, the remove the oil drums and bins. Unfortunately, the winter season has finished very quickly this year, and it's not clear that we're going to have all of those out, but the plan is to certainly get them out before the 2025 summer season. One of the suggestions in the feedback last year was to add mosquito netting to the huts so that, at least people could open the door and get a breeze in, air it out, that kind of thing. So as far as I'm aware, and again, I haven't been across personally to check this, but there should be mosquito netting for the doors of each hut inside the hut. It may not be, I know this sounds a bit weird, it may not be actually up, but it's actually something that you don't need any tools for, or all the tools are included in the kit. So if you're one of the first hikers this season, if you're going in June or late May, then have a look, and if there isn't netting on the door, have a look around for a mosquito netting kit, and it would be a huge help if you could put it up for us. The cleaning supplies in all the huts. So this has all gone out to all of the huts except for Ekalugania-Fik, which is in the middle, and I'm hoping it will go to Ikatok, which is the one up on the hill, in the next couple of days. Most huts, we can say, have new cleaning supplies in them. So you should be able to find a broom. In the two large huts, a mop. There are some microfiber cloths in all the huts. And there's like a bucket in each of the huts as well. So we just asked you, if you use the huts, please clean the floor before you leave. If you're in the larger huts and it's messy, maybe mop the floor for us, and please clean off all the tables and the benches in the huts. Again, we can't get out there to do this, so we need to rely on the hikers to do it for us during the season. I did review the signage in the huts, but I couldn't figure out a way to make it clearer. It is a lot of text, but I'll have to have another think about that for next year. In July, myself and a group of volunteers are going out to add navigational markers to the southern Arctic Circle Trail route. This is the route that is not well marked at the moment. And so hopefully we can start to encourage people to take that route if they wish from then on. The southern route is more difficult than the original route. I'll just say that up front. And you really, really, really need to know how to navigate to do it. It should be better once these poles are out there, but it is very wild and there is no tread. So you're literally walking through untrammeled tundra. So the southern route, once we actually do the markings, I'll actually add a bit more information about the southern route to the website. Some of you if you've been around in the forum for a year, will have known that the Ittinak River Bridge, which is the bridge in the middle of the trail, was very close to being washed away last year because of all the rain. And so it is currently, like as we speak, being extended and lifted again so that hopefully it will survive this summer. And in the meantime, we're applying for funding to build a new bridge, which will be placed much closer to the trail. So this current bridge is something like 4 kilometers from the trail through a very swampy piece of land if you're coming from Kangklusuaq end. The new bridge will actually be placed closer to the trail, just to avoid that whole issue. But again, more updates when and if we get the funding. But the bridge should be in place and should hopefully be secure for at least this year in the position at the coordinates that we actually have on the website for it. This is actually the last photograph I have of it from the summer, and you can see kind of what the issue is. And this is after it had already been rescued. The next thing we're doing is we're marking an off-road trail along the ridge between Kangklusuaq and the ACT. So those of you who've been doing some research will know that leaving Kangklusuaq, you either have a 16-kilometer hike out to Kellyville along a dirt road, which is, kind of never fun. But what we're trying to do is to allow hikers to walk all the way from the ice cap at Russell Glacier to the coast and not have to walk along a road. So this red line here is the road and the existing Arctic Circle Trail. In June, late June this year, early July, I will be marking this blue dotted line through here. So by the time most of you get out there this year, this will be in place if you wish. Again, it's much more difficult to do this than it is to hike along the road, but it will be an option. And as soon as I have the time, it will appear on the website. And this will join up with the Ice Ridge Trail, which was marked last year, which is this little trail up here, which goes all the way to Russell Glacier. Another thing we're trying to do is to find a different ending for the southern route of the Arctic Circle Trail that allows you to avoid the ATV track entirely. This will not be ready this year, so we are scouting it this year, and it will not be marked until next year at the earliest, but we are working on it. The route that is available, though, is this one here around Okumuyanguaq. This will be marked with poles this year, and so rather than hiking down this section of the trail, you can actually hike around the backside of here and join up here. So again, if you've been in the forums for a while, you've noticed that there is the proposal to have a maintenance fee for international hikers wishing to do the Arctic Circle Trail. There's a lot of conversation around that. The proposal has been submitted and is being discussed in May. So obviously I will update as more information becomes available. It certainly won't be in place this year, but if it is approved, then it will likely come into effect from next year. I mentioned donations before, and I will be promoting this much more heavily this year. Unfortunately, we can only accept donations between June and October for various reasons. So I'll be, once we are able to accept them starting in June, I'll be promoting that quite heavily as well. Because I mean, you've seen the budget, right? We need, it would be very nice if you have a good experience on the trail, or if you would like to help us with the trail, if you could donate. Another issue we had last year was around some guided tours, certainly not all of them. And so we created a set of guidelines and sent that out to all of the international and local guided groups that I could find. just to let them know about what is appropriate on the Arctic Circle Trail. In March, we published a new page on the website about search and rescue. So this is my attempt at explaining how this rather complicated system works here in Greenland. I mentioned earlier that the reason we really need you to know what you're doing and to have a lot of experience already with backcountry hiking is because we are very limited. And if you want to know more about that, please check out the search and rescue page on the Arctic Circle Trail website. And then the PLB program will continue in 2024. This is the last year that our current set of PLBs is valid for. And so we are in the process of identifying what will happen in 2025. But if you wish to hire a PLB, which is a personal locator beacon, which allows you to contact search and rescue in the event of a real emergency, I suggest that you contact us soon because they're allocated on a first in, first served basis. Right, so that's kind of what we've done. What else is happening this year? We have a photo comp running again. So we had a lot of fantastic entries last year. So check out the instructions and the rules and all that sort of stuff on the website. We really are looking forward to seeing images from everybody's adventures this year, and it is valid for both summer and winter. So if you're a winter person and thinking about doing it in winter, we accept images from winter as well, not just summer. We have two social media sites for Destination Arctic Circle, one on Facebook and one on Instagram. So this is not specific to the Arctic Circle Trail, but it is for the region. And although we're kind of taking a little bit of a break from regular posting, we do still post stories. And what we'd ask is that if you're adding stories or posts or anything from your Arctic Circle Trail hike, then tag us with @Destination Arctic Circle, and we will happily reshare as stories. That would be awesome. For those of you looking for what to do, you might be thinking of spending a couple of days in Kangerlussuaq or a couple of days in Sisimiut at either end of the hike. The best place for information is destinationarcticcircle.com. So this is our website for the region, and it has information on both towns. It has links to all of the tour operators and what they offer. So that is your best chance to, figure out how, not whether you will spend more days, but how you're going to spend your extra days at either end of the trail. And then if you haven't had enough hiking by the time you finish the Arctic Circle Trail, we have another website which is dedicated just to hiking. And these are all the day hikes around Kangerlussuaq and Sisimiut and Maniitsoq. So again, this is another website you can explore if you are looking for additional hiking in the area. And that's basically it. These are the two main contact details you should note down. So arcticcircletrail.gl again is our main website, and act@acb.gl is the Arctic Circle Trail email address. And again, please, if you're hiking the trail this year, if you've packed it in, please pack it out. Don't leave it in the huts or in the bins along the trail. Two days of food sounds a bit unrealistic, just ration food if you get delayed. There is that, but we strongly encourage you to have at least 1 day of food with you extra. It's not completely out of the ballpark that you may have to hunker down for a full day. I always thought that burying toilet paper isn't an issue in the Arctic region. It's not the worst offender, but it is still not good. So we would much rather that people pack it out with them. All it requires is a double-bagged Ziploc bag with you, and it doesn't weigh very much because it does last. The wet wipes, so those baby wipes or wet wipes, I'm not sure what people call them, they're a much bigger issue, and we have found a ton of those on the trail as well. They last a long time. So definitely pack those out, but we really would like you to pack out your used toilet paper as well. Just double bag it, put it on the side of your pack or the outside of your pack, and it's fine. Yes, once the new trail from Kangerlussuaq to the Arctic Circle Trail is completed, and once I have time, because I'm pretty much out in the field most of the summer as well, we will be adding it to the website and providing the GPX track for that. Regarding the maintenance fee, who's discussing it? It is, because it's passing through a UNESCO area, it's being discussed at the UNESCO meeting, steering group meeting, and it is actually the Ministry for Culture that ultimately decides whether it goes ahead or not. And international visitors is basically anybody who is not Greenlandic or anybody who is not resident in Greenland. Which route do I recommend? Hiking from Kangerlussuaq to Sisimiut or vice versa? Yeah. Most people hike from Kangerlussuaq to Sisimiut. And you can see in the infographic on our website or on the in the Facebook group what the rough split is on that. It's probably slightly easier to hike Kangerlussuaq to Sisimiut, because hiking from Sisimiut, you have a very big uphill the first day, and that's when you're carrying the most food. But you know, you end up doing the same elevation gain and loss, so it's really up to you. If you want to have a much better chance of being able to canoe the lake that you can canoe, then certainly starting from Sisimiut is better, because most of the canoes end up at the Sisimiut end. So the southern route versus the standard route. So the thing I will say about that, which I mentioned but will reiterate, is that the southern route is not well marked yet. That will happen this summer, and it is much harder, like much harder. There's no trail at all, except in like just a few places, and so you're walking in tundra, which means you will sink with every step until the trail is established, and that uses a lot more energy. So it is a lot harder, and there's a lot more up and down in the southern route. The pros are it's something different. If you know how to navigate, there'll be far less people on that particular route. It does give you the opportunity to go visit Safangwit, which is a settlement, which okay, it's a little bit like there's nothing guaranteed, but if you stand opposite Safangwit and wave for a little while, the locals are keen for hikers to come and visit. So if someone's available, they will come across and pick you up. There is a charge, obviously, to pay for them for their time and their fuel and all the rest of it. It's not set in stone yet. This is something we're still working on. But if you do hike the southern route, yeah, there is that opportunity there for you as well. It's really up to you which one you want to do, but I recommend the original route if you don't have a lot of experience in the backcountry. I definitely recommend the original route. Polar bears. So our thing is that polar bears are extremely rare in this region. Yes, there was a polar bear recently, but it was actually offshore. So actually nowhere near the town, even though it says near Sisimiut, it's actually not near town. It was offshore. And they're very, very, very rare. Also, if you're on the original route of the Arctic Circle Trail, there are a lot of people, well, a lot is being relative, that it's very, very unlikely to meet one along there. We don't ask that you carry additional protection from polar bears. So with the ATV track, you can walk on the ATV track, that's not a problem. It's what we're trying to do by doing the southern route and these alternate endings and stuff like that, is to allow hikers the option of not having to walk on the ATV track. But at the moment, walk on the ATV track. And even coming into Sisimiut, that last part where they're doing the ATV track across to the first fjord, they know that there will be a lot of hikers coming through in the summer, and they are prepared for that. It was a similar thing last year when they were working on the first part out of Sisimiut. So don't feel as if you can't walk on the ATV track. You 100% can, and you will have to, in fact, because there's no other way. On the southern route, there is one hut, which is being finished as we speak, but that's it. So on the website, once that's done, once we've updated everything this year from the southern route, that hut will be located on there as well. But if you're actually on the trail, you can't miss it. Animal threats. So we haven't heard anything about rabid foxes this winter. I'm sure that they are still out there. Again, it's not common, but it does exist now in our backcountry. If you're really worried about it, then definitely have rabies shots before you come, and make sure you have an emergency beacon so you can call for an emergency, because even if you are vaccinated against rabies, you still have to get to help extremely quickly. But again, you know, we know it exists out there, but we haven't had any recent reports about it. Gas. So gas is always the most popular question. So Kangerlussuaq and Sisimiut have become quite good at making sure they have adequate gas supply for the trail. It's not 100% guaranteed. Nothing in Greenland is 100% guaranteed, but you will most likely be able to find gas in Kangerlussuaq and Sisimiut. If you're really concerned about it, then perhaps email Kang Mini Market and ask them to reserve some gas canisters for you. So for example, if you're coming with a group of friends and you're 8 people or something like that, then it might be worthwhile to contact them and ask them if they could just put some aside for you with your date and all the rest of it. As far as I'm aware, it's very occasionally that there are no gas canisters in town. Mosquitoes. So the mosquitoes don't carry malaria or anything like that. So, I mean, they're a pain in the butt, but they don't carry diseases. So definitely bring a head net. They will drive you insane if you don't. So definitely bring a head net and, you know, either long sleeves or, you know, insect repellent if you wish. Especially if you're hiking kind of mid-June to mid-August, you will definitely encounter mosquitoes and or flies. Late August and early September, they're mostly dead. But again, I'm not going to guarantee that you won't find some. So, yeah. Yes, if there's no canoe, you just simply keep following the trail. There's a trail all the way along the lake to the next hut. That's not a problem. No, so the PLBs that we offer are very, very, very basic. So it's only one-way communication. Essentially, you unwrap an aerial, you can see the video on our website, and you hit a button, and that's it. But the signal that they send goes to exactly the same emergency coordination center as what an inReach would do. So the advantage on what we're trying to encourage people to do is to have a two-way communication device. And if you read our page about search and rescue in Greenland, it explains why that's important, because there are different levels of search and rescue here. With a one-way communication device, they will do the full thing. Even if they even though they have your GPS location, because they can't verify that you're still there, they will send out a full search and rescue team. And that could be up to 18 people involved in that. If you have a two-way communication device, then they can identify that you are still at that location and the severity or the urgency of what is actually happening, whether it's absolutely life-threatening or whether it's something that a little there is a little bit of time to respond to. Obviously, they'll respond as quickly as possible, but it gives them a little bit more information to know exactly what they need to send and how quickly. So we really, really would love it if everybody carried a two-way communication device, but at least make sure you have a one-way communication device. And as I mentioned in the talk, the personal locator beacons, you can rent or you can book them on our site, and the information is on there. For the winter, a lot more information is coming about winter. in the next few months, well, at least after this summer, because there are an increasing number of people wanting to do it in winter. The cairns most of them are not visible in the winter, but it's the main dog sledding and snowmobiling route between Sisimiut and Kangerlussuaq. And because each winter is different, what we say to people doing it in winter is just follow the dog sled tracks and you'll be fine. Because especially if you're in sort of the shoulder edges of winter, the ice, it depends on how quickly the ice is frozen and that kind of thing. So the dog sledding tracks and the snowmobiling tracks, they have been established by local people who are very familiar with the backcountry, who do it all the time in the winter. And so they have actually identified the best route through there. So if you're doing it in winter, you likely won't see cairns. You can have the GPX track for guidance, but don't stay religious to it. If you should be able to see the dog sled tracks unless there's been a big storm through, in which maybe wait for a little bit until the first dog sled comes through. Follow the tracks. That's how you navigate in winter. So how experienced do you have to be to cross the lake alone using a canoe? Good question. So I am not a canoe person either. Obviously it's better with more than one person just because it will be easier. And, if you kind of hang out at the hut for a little bit, I'm sure you'll find a buddy to share the canoe with you. We strongly suggest, and again, all this information is on our website, that you stick close to the shoreline. So don't go through the middle of the lake. Kind of be a little bit close to the shoreline, because one of the common things that happens on that lake is that the wind will pick up. So it might be beautiful when you leave, but by the time you're halfway through your trip, the wind may have picked up and you need to be able to ditch on the shoreline. If you do need to ditch, make sure you do it on the southern shoreline, because that's where the trail is, and make sure you lift and pull the canoe up to a point where it's visible from the trail so that other hikers who are on the trail can see it and they may be able to take it in either direction that they're going. The other thing we ask, and again, this is all on the website, is please do not take the canoes past the canoe center. So if you're coming from the Kangerlussuaq end, you can paddle all the way from Kattafik to the canoe center, but please don't paddle beyond that, because the lake gets very, very shallow and rocky, and it just ends up damaging the canoes. So please stop at the canoe center. Don't go any further than that. You have to hike the rest of the way. Are there sockets at Kangerlussuaq Airport? Yes, and there's even free Wi-Fi now. So that was a big step forward. The market to save some gas was Kang Mini Market, and you can find that their contact details on the Destination Arctic Circle website. Are there any biking? Very few. So in the winter, there are people who fat bike the trail, and that's actually quite an impressive journey. In summer, we have had a few people try it on mountain bike, but it's not really a bikeable trail. And their feedback on it was that basically you end up carrying your bike for half of it. So I would say that no, the summer trail is not bikeable, but in winter it's definitely doable on fat bike. For the extension, if one starts at Rossa Glacier, do people leave part of their gear in Kangerlussuaq? So it's up to you. When the new trail along the ridge to the Arctic Circle Trail is complete, you won't have to drop down into Kangerlussuaq at all. At the moment you do, because you have to join back up onto the road. And for me, it makes sense that you may want to leave stuff at your accommodation for a couple of days in Kangerlussuaq, pick it up, and then head back out. Insurance in Greenland. So you need to organise your own insurance and make sure it covers search and rescue airlift in whatever provider you use in your country for travel insurance. So we don't have any specific recommendations because every country is different, but you need to investigate that where you would typically buy your travel insurance. Is there a local contact? Yeah, so this is something that would be a really good idea. Is there a local contact that if you had a two-way communication device, you could connect with in order to avoid a full search and rescue thing? This is a slightly complicated one. So you could reach out to any of the tour operators on the websites. You know, their phone numbers are there, and you know, obviously they welcome clients. However, you're going to have to keep in mind that there is no way to get to most of the trail in summer. Okay, thoughts about Air Greenland moving to Nuuk. So what's happening is that the main international airport for Greenland is moving from Kangerlussuaq to Nuuk in November this year. Unfortunately, we still don't have all the information we need to be able to advise what that's going to mean for the trail. There will definitely still be domestic flights from Nuuk to Kangerlussuaq, but we don't have the information yet about exactly what that's going to look like. There are also conversations around trying to get direct international flights to still fly into Kangerlussuaq, but again, there's nothing concrete yet. When the blue containers are gone, there'll be no option to collect rubbish around a hut and leave it at the hut. Yes, we are still thinking through that one, but our feeling is that with the blue containers there, it's just too easy for hikers to, and locals, it's not just hikers and locals, to just use them. Whereas if they're not there, then it makes everybody think, you know, extra hard about leaving stuff around and not picking up their own stuff. So we're still working through, well, if you do collect rubbish along the trail, what do you do with it? And we'll come back to you about that one. Okay, so one more question about the Wi-Fi in Kangerlussuaq. So there is Wi-Fi in Kangerlussuaq and Sisimiut. In Kangerlussuaq Airport, it's free. Almost nowhere else is it free, although it may be included in your accommodation. Don't expect lightning speeds. You know, we are not at that level here in Greenland. But there is Wi-Fi. It is entirely usable most of the time, so you don't have to worry about that. Is there any connection on high points throughout the trail? No. Basically, there is no phone reception from basically when you leave Kangerlussuaq until you're just outside of Sisimiut. So the last pass into Sisimiut, you'll start to get phone reception. Are the locals happy with tourist hikers for the trail? Yes. Yeah, and in fact, more and more Greenlandic people are starting to do the trail, both in summer and winter. So for them, like with the Greenlandic people, most people are out hunting because hunting is a really important way of life here in Greenland. And so, you know, to walk a specific trail is kind of not, you know, hasn't historically been, you know, the kind of thing they did, but there are now more and more Greenlandic people also doing the trail. Waterproof socks can't hurt. I can't guarantee they're going to make it the whole way. It depends on how wet it is. So prior to about, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, the trail was fairly dry. I mean, there were always little sections, but it was fairly dry. The last 2 years have been extremely wet. And even with waterproof socks, I'm not sure you would have got to the end with dry feet. You need to be able to manage wet feet if you're coming to do the Arctic Circle Trail, because again, we have no idea what this summer is going to be like, but you need to be able to manage that yourself so it doesn't end up as an emergency. And is it good to wear bright clothing because of the hunting? It's not really necessary because the locals know where the trail is. And they don't hunt on the trail because, you know, although there's not a huge amount of hikers, relatively speaking, for the vast distance we're covering, the wildlife will, you know, tend to move away from the trail itself, and so the hunters tend to be away from the trail. What it does help with, though, is in a case of emergency, and if they do send the helicopter, it will make you easier to find if you're wearing something bright or if you have a signaling mirror. Fishing on the track, couple more questions. Fishing on the track, it is possible. There's no guarantees you're going to catch anything. Some people are successful, a lot of people are not, but there are some lakes with fish in them. After September 15, I would recommend I don't really know. After September 15, it's starting to get pretty cold, and you will end up with snow. It may also be quite windy, so 3 to 4 season tent for sure. Any good spots to camp near Point 660? I actually don't know. I've never actually tried to camp there. We are trying to encourage people to start at Russell Glacier. Unless, of course, you're doing a tour to Point 660, and then it makes sense to walk down the road back to Russell Glacier. There's wonderful camping at Russell Glacier, although the water, you need to collect your water from the lakes beside the road before going over the hill to the Russell Glacier, if that's what you're going to do, if you're going to camp there, because there is no fresh water over there. There are some nice places off the road as you come from Point 660 to Russell Glacier, but at Point 660 itself, yeah, not really anywhere to camp that's good there. All right. So I think that's it. And as I say, any other questions, just email me at act@acb.gl. Make sure you read the website really carefully and thoroughly, because a lot of the information is on there. And yeah, if you're coming this year, we're looking forward to seeing you here. Just make sure you're well prepared and all the rest, and have a great hike. If not, we'll see you in the Facebook group or wherever around the world. So thank you once again for joining, and thank you for your kind words about the presentation. Hope it was useful. It'll be up on YouTube in the next couple of days. So thanks very much for attending, everybody. Takus.